A girl steps off a city bus on her way to school. Security cameras catch everything. She walks down the street. A man in a white hoodie appears behind her. He starts following her. And that is the last moment 14-year-old Alianna DeFreeze is ever seen alive. A few days later, police search an abandoned house in Cleveland. Inside, they find a body. And the truth about what happened to this young girl would shock even seasoned detectives. January 26, 2017, Cleveland, Ohio. It was around 4 in the afternoon when people started realizing something was wrong. 14-year-old Alianna still hadn't come home from school. Her family knew her routine. They knew her habits. She was the type of kid who went to school and came home. So when hours passed and she still wasn't back, her mother Donisha started making calls. First, she contacted the school, and what they told her, Alianna hadn't been there that day because Alianna had left home that morning around 6:30 a.m. like she always did. Her mother even walked her to the bus stop near the 3400 block of East 149th Street. From there, she would take the RTA bus, ride across town, get off near East 93rd and Kinsman, then transfer to another bus that took her straight to school. It was her normal routine. So when the school said she never showed up, the question became obvious. Where did she go? If she didn't run away, then what happened? Alianna attended E-Prep and Village Prep, Woodland Hills. She had been there for 2 years. During that time, the school had introduced an automated system that sent alerts to parents if their child didn't show up to class. But somehow no alert was sent that day. So hours passed before her family even realized she had never arrived. People who knew Alianna described her as loving, friendly, always smiling. She also had a developmental disability, which made her especially close with her family. By the time police were contacted, the situation was already serious. A 14-year-old girl had vanished somewhere between her bus stop and her school. Police started piecing together the timeline by talking to family members, classmates, and teachers. But nothing strange came up. Luckily, the buses she rode had security cameras. Detectives pulled the footage and started reviewing it carefully. And there she was, Alianna riding the bus like any other student. Then the footage showed her getting off the bus at her transfer stop near East 93rd. She stepped onto the sidewalk, and that was when investigators noticed something. A man standing nearby, wearing a white hoodie. He was watching her. Then slowly, he began walking behind her. But investigators would soon realize that moment on camera would become extremely important. Because after that, Alianna disappeared. Once police saw that footage, the entire investigation shifted. Now there was a possible suspect. Someone had been following her. But who was he? And where did they go after leaving that street? The area around East 93rd and Kinsman had dozens of abandoned houses. Old structures boarded up and left empty for years. Places where illegal activity sometimes happened without anyone noticing. So police began checking them. Officers started going door to door, talking to residents, asking if anyone had seen anything. Meanwhile, the community stepped in too. Neighbors, volunteers, families. People came out into the freezing weather determined to help find this girl. Search teams worked through the cold, moving block by block. But then something happened that changed everything. Just a few hours later, police made a discovery inside one of those abandoned homes near the 9400 block of Fuller Avenue. Officers entered the house during the search. Inside, they found a body. At that moment, investigators couldn't officially confirm the identity yet. But police already had a strong idea. The remains belonged to a young black girl, and investigators feared the worst. Soon, the details of the crime scene began to emerge. The girl found inside the house was naked. She was lying in a pool of blood. There was a trail of blood leading to the dining room area. On a built-in bench nearby, investigators found several tools, a drill, a box cutter, other objects that appeared to have been used during the attack. The injuries matched those tools. There was also a footprint inside the house. Medical examiners later discovered the victim had suffered extensive trauma, a broken jaw, multiple stab wounds. The damage was so severe the examiner could not determine an exact cause of death. She ultimately had to be identified through dental records. Not long after, the truth became official. The victim was Alianna DeFreeze. The community was devastated. People gathered outside the abandoned house, leaving flowers and teddy bears. Many couldn't even process what had happened, but investigators weren't done yet. They still had to find the man responsible, and it wouldn't take long before a name started surfacing. Christopher Whitaker. February 2017, police made an arrest. Whitaker was captured at the Villa Arena Apartments in Mayfield Heights by Cleveland police and federal marshals. He was 44 years old, and when detectives looked into his background, they discovered something disturbing. Whitaker was already a registered sex offender. Back in 2005, he had been convicted of attacking and sexually assaulting a woman. Despite the brutality of that crime, Whitaker had served only 4 years in prison, and now police believed he had killed a 14-year-old girl. When detectives began processing the evidence inside the abandoned house, they discovered something that directly tied Christopher Whitaker to the crime. His DNA, it was found on Alianna's body and inside the house where she was murdered.
Investigators didn't stop. And tonight, the culmination of their efforts is the arrest of a person that we need to make sure never touches our streets again.
It is the answer a family and an entire community has been waiting and praying for. Police arrested a man suspected of killing 14-year-old Alianna DeFreeze.
Christopher Whitaker, now charged with aggravated murder. A relief in many respects, a man suspected of killing a little girl now in custody.
Police announcing the arrest just moments ago, but their investigation is just beginning. We have team coverage on this breaking news tonight. Investigator Joe Paganakis digging into Whitaker's criminal past.
But we begin with Frank Wiley, who was at tonight's news conference. Frank?
Yeah, that meeting happened in this building right here behind me, an emotional gathering for everyone involved in this search. I want to pull up some video of the meeting that we grabbed earlier this evening. Now, police made that arrest of 44-year-old Christopher Whitaker tonight around 7:15. He was in Mayfield Heights. Investigators are still questioning him at this hour. We know Whitaker is from South Euclid. Now, Chief Calvin Williams told me tips started coming in this morning, and it took the help of Cleveland police, Cuyahoga County prosecutors, FBI, and U.S. Marshals. And Mayor Jackson also thanked the community.
Everyone felt this loss in a way that I've not witnessed in some time.
We put everything we could out there to find her and bring her home safely. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. There are a lot of pieces of the puzzle. So anybody that has any information on this suspect, Christopher Whitaker, his whereabouts over the last week, anybody he may have talked to.
Now, police told me they did conduct over 80 face-to-face interviews. This is far from over. They're going to go back out to that crime scene and question some more people. So, of course, if you know anything, they're asking you to give them a call at this number right here, 216-623-5464. For now, we are live downtown. Frank Wiley, News 5.
All right, Frank, thank you so much. Let's stay on this now and ask the question, who is Christopher Whitaker? We've been digging into his criminal past tonight, and on your side, investigator Joe Paganakis is at the scene where he was arrested just hours ago. Joe?
That's right. Whitaker arrested right here about 4 hours ago at the Villa Serena Apartments on Mayfield Road in Mayfield Heights by Cleveland police and federal marshals. Now, we did some background checking on Chris Whitaker. We took a look at his record. According to court records, Whitaker has a felony record convicted of sexual battery and felonious assault back in September of 2005. Records indicate his victim was a 45-year-old female and that Whitaker served 4 years in prison, released back in 2009. Now, according to Cuyahoga county records, Whitaker is listed as a sexually oriented offender. Again, police were able to make an arrest based on evidence collected by the medical examiner's office. Now, we went to Whitaker's home listed on the arrest warrant on Colony Road in South Euclid. We knocked on the door. Nobody answered there. But again, Whitaker taken into custody without incident at 7:15 this evening right here at the Villa Serena Apartments on Mayfield Road. Reporting live here in Mayfield Heights, I'm News 5 investigator Joe Paganakis.
So investigators brought Whitaker in for questioning. At first, he denied everything. He insisted he hadn't even been in that area that day. But then detectives presented the evidence. Whitaker's story changed almost immediately. He began claiming he had blacked out. He blamed drugs. Then he tried offering another explanation. Whitaker claimed Alianna followed him into the abandoned house. He said he believed she was a sex worker, even though she was wearing her school uniform. He said she removed her clothes and offered herself to him. Then he claimed she attacked him first. But detectives quickly found problems with that story. A witness had seen Whitaker grabbing Alianna before walking away with her. Security footage confirmed it, so what he was saying didn't match the evidence. Eventually, the case went to trial. Prosecutors laid out what they believed happened that morning. They argued Whitaker had gone out looking for a victim and targeted Alianna when he saw her alone. Inside a abandoned house, they said he carried out a brutal assault using several tools found at the scene. During the trial, Whitaker didn't challenge the main evidence. Instead, his defense focused on the penalty phase. They hoped to avoid the death penalty. A psychologist testified that Whitaker's drug use had affected his impulse control, but prosecutors rejected that argument. The jury listened to days of disturbing testimony describing the injuries Alianna suffered. Then, finally, the verdict came.
The court's been advised that you've reached a verdict. Ladies and gentlemen, juror number 3, Mr. Foreperson, would you hand the verdict forms to the bailiff, please? Thank you. And in the matter of the state of Ohio versus Christopher Whitaker, and gentlemen, you can remain seated in light of the number of forms that there are. With respect to count number 1, the aggravated murder, the verdict form reads as follows. We, the jury, in this case being duly impaneled and sworn, do find the defendant, Christopher Whitaker, guilty of aggravated murder in violation of Revised Code Section 2903.01b of the Revised Code, as charged in count 1 of the indictment. It is signed by juror number 3, the foreperson, as well as the 11 other panel members. With respect to the felony murder specification, the indication is that he did, in fact, commit the offense while committing, attempting to commit, or fleeing immediately after committing or attempting to commit rape, and either the offender was the principal offender in the commission of the aggravated murder, or if not, the principal offender committed the aggravated murder with prior calculation and design. As charged in count 1, this too is signed by juror number 3, as well as the 11 other panel members. With respect to the felony murder specification, again, it is signed in the affirmative by juror number 3, as well as the 11 other panel members. And with respect to the second specification, it's in the affirmative that as to the aggravated burglary, signed by all 12 of the jurors. With respect to count number 2, again, the verdict is guilty, and it is signed by juror number 3, as well as the 11 other panel members. With respect to the felony murder specification having to do with the rape, it is in the affirmative that he did, in fact, commit the offense while committing, attempting to commit, or fleeing immediately after committing the rape. It too is signed by all 12 of the panelists. With respect to the felony murder specification as to the kidnapping, again, it is in the affirmative, bearing 12 signatures. And with respect to the aggravated burglary specification, again, it is that he did in fact commit the offense with respect to the aggravated burglary, signed by all 12 of the panelists. With respect to count number 3, again, the verdict is guilty, signed by all 12 of the jurors. And with respect to the felony murder specification having to do with the rape, it is signed in the affirmative, as is the specification with respect to the kidnapping and the aggravated burglary. Both of these specifications are that he did in fact commit the offense while committing those two circumstances, signed by all 12 of the panelists. With respect to count 4, again, the aggravated murder indicates that the defendant is in fact guilty, signed by all 12 of the panelists. With respect to the felony murder specification having to do with the rape, it is signed in the affirmative, as is the specification having to do with kidnapping, as well as the aggravated burglary. Both of those are likewise signed in the affirmative, signed by all 12 of the panel members. As to count number 5, the rape, the verdict form indicates a guilty verdict, signed by all 12 of the panelists. With respect to the kidnapping, again, it is a guilty verdict, signed by all 12 of the panel members. And as to the sexual motivation specification, it indicates that the state did prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the offense of kidnapping with a sexual motivation specification as charged in count 6, again, signed by all 12 of the panel members. With respect to count 7, the kidnapping, the verdict is guilty, signed by all 12 of the panel members. And with respect to the age of Alianna DeFreeze, indicates that she was in fact under 18 years of age, again, signed by all 12 of the panel members. And with respect to the sexual motivation specification, it too is signed in the affirmative by all 12 of the panel members. As to count 8, the aggravated burglary, the verdict is guilty, signed by all 12 of the panelists. As to count 9, the tampering with evidence, guilty as well. As count 10 is also a guilty verdict. All of the verdict forms signed by this jury.
Count after count was read aloud. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Whitaker later addressed the court.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Whitaker, state your full name.
Christopher Lamar Whitaker.
No, and spell your last name for the record.
Whitaker.
Did you prepare a statement to read to the jurors?
Yes. From the beginning, I've accepted full responsibility for my actions. I assisted the detectives as to where to find my clothes and boots I was wearing that day. I never wanted this to happen, and ever since that day, I've been filled with regret and remorse. Through the year, I made a lot of phone calls, and in those calls, I've said things and lied about things in order to protect my family's feelings. I've admitted to my guilt to the detectives and to my lawyers. I asked my lawyers not to contest or challenge anything in this case because I really wanted the DeFreeze family to have closure. I will not try to hide behind drugs or alcohol. I will not pretend or lie because it wouldn't be fair to the family. I apologize to the family and the community for my actions. There is no excuse for what I've done. I can't imagine the pain the family feels, but I know the pain I felt when I had to look at what I've done. If I could go back to that day in January, I'd change everything, but I can't, so I have to live with each day with the shame, hurt, and guilt. And although the trial is over, the regret and painful memories will remain with me. That's just things I can't shake. I pray that the family can find peace and she can find rest. And my apologies.
Thank you. You may step down.
But for Alianna's family, nothing he said could change what happened. The jury recommended the death penalty, and the judge agreed. Christopher Whitaker was sentenced to death. He also received an additional 48 years for other charges connected to the crime. Alianna's father spoke afterward.
Just ask that you please watch your children. There's a lot of Christopher Whitakers out here. There's a lot of Christopher Whitakers out here. They're watching as I speak.
What do you think of the death penalty recommendation?
I wanted life without the possibility of parole, but I respect whatever the jury and the judge has come up with. I prefer him to sit there forever. You can sit on death row forever, but you're isolated. I want this man to experience hell on earth before he experiences hell in the afterlife.
Later, Whitaker appealed his sentence to the Ohio Supreme Court, but the court upheld his convictions. Today, his execution remains scheduled, though delays have stalled executions in the state. Meanwhile, the abandoned house where Alianna was murdered has been demolished, but her family refused to let her story end there. They pushed for change. A new law was passed requiring schools to notify parents within 2 hours if a student fails to show up for class. Her family also created the Alianna DeFreeze Let's Make a Change Foundation. Through community programs, advocacy, and outreach, they continue working to protect other children. Because Alianna DeFreeze should still be here today, and the people who loved her are making sure her name is never forgotten.